Hey Slingers, thanks for tuning in to another week of the Wordslinger podcast. This week we're talking to Adam Leeb. He's a co-founder of Astrohaus. They're the makers of that cool retro-looking Freewrite typewriter. That's what we're going to go with, typewriter. So you're going to enjoy this interview with Adam. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. It's kind of cool to see how things evolve, where they come from, learn their origins, that sort of thing. Now, stick around after the interview. We've got industry news, some cool stuff you're going to want to hear. So make sure you stick around, check that out, and I'll see you on the other side.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Hey everybody, I occasionally I like to reach out to folks who are doing something kind of cool and incredible. If you've listened for a while, you know that's true. Today, I'm actually talking to Adam Leeb. He's the co-founder of Astrohaus, and that may sound familiar to you, especially if you've been kind of tooling around the internet. And we authors, we do that. They're the makers of the Freewrite, and if you don't know what that is, we're going to get into some details on that thing. But it is probably one of the coolest looking little word. I don't know if. How do you classify this, Adam? Is it a word processor? Is it just a writing tool? What do you want to call it?
Well, we struggle with that ourselves, but we call it a smart typewriter, or probably the best words for it are distraction-free writing tool.
Okay, I will go with your marketing slang for it. It is kind of it's got a very sort of vintage typewriter look, which is what I think attracts a lot of us. Very focused writing environment kind of thing. And that's becoming increasingly important these days. I literally just posted for Drafted Digital's blog this morning. It'll go live probably in a couple of days, but a whole article about writing mobile, writing from anywhere. And I'm using my phone now for that sort of thing, but there are a lot of distractions that come with that. So you guys have this very cool, very well crafted tool. I haven't gotten to lay my hands on one personally yet. I've seen them in the wild though. So I'm very impressed by this thing, man. What was sort of the impetus behind the creation of the Freewrite?
Thanks, I appreciate it. Actually, I brought one as well, so I'll just do a
cool.
quick close-up.
Yes, for the listeners, you're just gonna have to look at the post.
Yeah, it helps to see it because every time I try to explain it to people without them having any kind of visual reference, it's very confusing. But once you see it, it kind of comes together very quickly.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we sort of had this vision for a distraction-free writing tool based off of really the modern distraction-free writing software that authors are using. Right. So you can kind of look at the Freewrite and think, well, are we trying to just catch onto this nostalgia of typewriters? But really, it was trying to take this really simplistic, distraction-free software experience that writers are loving, and then matching that with some modern hardware that is just better for writing, like e-ink screen and the mechanical keyboard, which these are the things that people are staring at and using. So why not give writers the best possible hardware experience?
Yeah, there's a popular trend right now. I see these a lot, especially at conferences. Writers who are using, I don't think this is a competitor because I don't think they make this thing anymore. The Neo Alpha Smart, a little portable keyboard.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting idea, except it's basically just a keyboard with a really large buffer.
Right.
But you guys have some functionality and storage built into your device, though.
Look, it's not really a competitor. I mean,
I didn't think so.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, the company's not in business. So, we're dealing with old stock, used stock. And I think, it's funny because when we first launched the product, or really it was a project before it was a product, and people are like, oh, have you heard of these things? And it's like, yeah, we did our research, but the Alpha Smart was really designed for the school setting, and it had a completely different set of needs than the modern writer. And that product did well for them for a long time, but they didn't even really try to kind of keep up to date. You know, the latest operating system on an Alpha Smart is a Palm Pilot, basically.
Right.
So, you know, it's really hard to try and get a modern, you know, person that's used to, you know, iOS or Android to be using Palm.
Right.
You know, it's just, there's too much of a leap there. And so, you know, again, like it's fine, you know, and you can get them for really cheap on the secondhand market. For people that are really serious and want to, you know, have some of these modern conveniences, like having things sync to the cloud, which you can't do with an Alpha Smart, that's, you know, kind of where the Freewrite fits in. And of course the keyboard is completely different. And I think that's one thing that our customers, I think, you know, truly love. I mean, it's just a very different typing experience with having full size keys and the mechanical keyboard, the key switch. That's a big difference.
I mean, it does take me back to, you know, the early days for me as a writer. And, you know, I learned to type on an IBM Selectric, one of those big blue electric typewriters, which were much more, much meatier, you know, much hardier. And then there were the mechanical keyboards, you know, the beige box mechanical keyboards and that sort of thing. Not so much nostalgia there, but, you know, what you guys have built is kind of cool. There's this thing about writers, you know, we want to be efficient, but we also want to look cool doing it. And I think you guys are kind of tapping into that with this sort of nostalgia feel of it. But you're saying that was almost a side effect of it then? Or was it?
The design kind of came full circle. I think that we obviously were influenced by the aesthetics of a typewriter. But we also tried to have some discipline in terms of not including things that would have just been like bells and whistles or, you know, some kind of like skeuomorphism for typewriters. Like we don't have the carriage return bell or that kind of like lever type of thing, because there's just no need for it, you know, in a modern writing system.
Right.
So it's kind of like this blend where I call it like retro futuristic. It takes some of this design language from typewriters, but also sort of blends it with modern times. And it's hard to really place the design. And, you know, it's funny because a lot of our customers, you know, they like writing in coffee shops, but they find it challenging because people will constantly ask them what it is.
I would imagine that's true.
Yeah, maybe we shot ourselves in the foot on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely imagine that's true. Cause, I remember actually when the iPad first came out, and I had a unique case that allowed me to. It had a keyboard and everything built into it, and it was unique at the time. And I was getting very little writing done.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So okay, so it's an e-ink display, which I find kind of interesting because I didn't think that could update and refresh quickly enough for that kind of writing, but you guys have clearly figured that out. Was there what were some of the technical challenges of this thing?
Yeah, the e-ink display has a lot of technical challenges. I mean, there's a reason that you don't see them in so many different types of products. And it's funny because when we had launched the Kickstarter, we had kind of gone into this thing, you know, first of all, we're not writers, admittedly. I'm a mechanical engineer. Both my partner and I, neither of us are electrical engineers. So, you know, beyond the design for writing purposes, we also had to figure out, you know, how are we going to make this thing? And so the e-ink definitely brought a big challenge. E-ink is actually the company. It's not even the technology. It's a company that invented this technology, and they sort of have all of the patents around it. So if you want this type of technology legally, then you have to go through them, and they have a reputation of being, you know, historically not that easy to work with, especially for small people. They just don't work with small companies. You know, we were hearing that you had to order 1 million units at a time. And so we're not quite there, and we definitely weren't, you know, that confident at the beginning. So, and along with that, you know, just working with it, there's a lot of technical challenges to get it to work. It's obviously not as prevalent as traditional LCD technology. And so, you know, there's a much more limited ecosystem for it to make it work. and control it. But, we did the thing, we did it the right way. We use a similar controller that is tried and true in the ebook market. And we're able to get really good refresh rates. And, some people, are concerned about whether the refresh rate is fast enough, but I think it really fits in again into this writing methodology where you're supposed to be drafting. And, a lot of reviewers have commented on this, that you sort of just ignore it and you just keep writing. And it actually works out pretty well. And I think it also is part of the reason why we haven't done a full-blown editor on the machine, because it's not the best for trying to replicate a PC or, having a full PC experience or Mac experience where, you're trying to drag things around and make quick changes and go up and down. And that's definitely challenging for e-ink. So, we wanted to try and match the use case with what the actual product can do.
Right.
And I think it works. It's such a great technology. I mean, you can write outside. I mean, part of the reason that this thing even exists is that both my business partner, and I are sort of obsessed with the Kindle.
Okay.
It's so great. We love those things. You can take a huge fat stack of books with you on something that's, a quarter of an inch thick or, a centimeter thick. And it's just so great to read on. And so I think we really appreciated the technology just from what the Kindle has done with it, and thought it would be a great place to, you could try it again and put that technology into a writing tool.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like the Kindle is the back end, and what you guys have built is the front end of that whole process.
Yeah, the Kindle is like, it's an e-reader, so we kind of joke around. It's like, oh well, ours is an e-writer.
Yeah. I'm surprised that term doesn't get bandied about more.
Yeah, it hasn't caught on yet.
Yes. Well, we'll work on that, man. Everybody listening right now, it's an e-writer. You were looking for the language. No, I don't know, man. I kind of like the what kind of typewriter?
Smart typewriter.
Smart typewriter. Is that how you refer to it? Okay.
It's like I have such a hard time with it because
I like that actually.
Yeah, see, I think it connects well with people. I just don't like calling it a typewriter because people have very strong feelings, positive or negative about it. One interesting thing is that we found, sort of surprisingly, that younger folks actually connect better, and sort of like in the millennials generation.
Right.
They've never seen, they've never really had an experience with a typewriter, whereas people that grew up using typewriters sort of hate them and remember the clunky experiences that they had. And so, we're constantly sort of battling this thing, but, whatever works.
You gotta produce for the crowd that's coming in, not the crowd that's going out, man.
That's right.
So, all right. What's really curious to me, you mentioned this briefly. You had said that, you're not a writer, your partner's not a writer. I find that fascinating. So why a smart typewriter then? Why a writing tool? What made you decide that this is the product we're going to put ourselves behind?
It's a good question. So I think we're both, the things that we do have in common and that we try to use to them, as much as possible is sort of, we both have a real passion for sort of process and being productive. And, I say we're both not writers, but in all honesty, Patrick, my business partner, he used to write a lot of essays. So he's not a professional writer, but he appreciated the writing experience and really enjoyed writing. And so this whole thing got started because of a conversation about distraction-free writing software that he was using and explaining to me, and me being the Dodo engineer sort of was kind of flabbergasted that this was even a thing. And so, but it makes complete sense to me because, the more I got into it, well, first of all, I understand that people need to create an environment for success, whatever you're doing. If you are working in some kind of workshop, you want to make sure that your space is clean and you want to have good lighting and all these things. If you're a writer, and we've heard this from every writer we've ever talked to, is that you have to have some sort of environment that helps you focus. And, you know, every writer has their own sort of process. And I think that's something that I've started to understand talking to a lot of writers, is that every writer has a way for them to get focused, whether they have a specific type of coffee that they drink, or they write in a closet, or they write, you know, on an old Word, you know, DOS machine with WordStar, like George R.R. Martin.
I was going to bring him up. Yeah, I just mentioned him today.
Right. Everybody has their thing. And you know, and it makes good sense too, because I think, you know, and even though I'm not a writer, I can appreciate this idea that, you know, the crux of the problem with writing is that it's sort of getting into that world that you're trying to create and staying there, especially for creative writing. But even for nonfiction writing, I think, you know, it's still a huge problem. It's not so much, you know, the grammar and finding the right word, you know, all that stuff can kind of be massaged out later, but the actual storytelling, that really depends on being focused and being really in that world that you're creating. And so it just, all that kind of stuff just kind of made sense to me. And I thought, you know, here we had this idea, we came up with it, you know, in one conversation. I could visualize what it would look like. And I thought it was interesting enough and timely enough that people would be interested. And that was really as much as it was. And, you know, there were some other like life things that were going on that just made sense for me to work on it, for us to work on it. Those always are really important, just the timing of when these things come about. But honestly, as soon as we put the prototype together, and we did that very quickly, people started going pretty crazy. So we didn't have a lot of time to even think about, well, should we keep working on this? Because people were just kind of hammering our inbox.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, the setup of this thing is you use this for the writing, and then you would do your editing and everything else, I guess, on a laptop or whatever, right? So that it kind of necessitates having both. I mean, so as far as like the price point goes, like do you guys, a lot of will-be authors, which is what I call people getting into this game. You know, they have limited budgets. So, so I kind of wanted to talk about like how you came to the price point here. Well, I'm trying to kind of skirt around it because I don't want to imply that it's so expensive it's just not worth it. I want to imply that it is an investment, and I think it's a good investment if you need the focused writing. But in light of the fact that you also need a computer to do the editing, I'm just wondering how you guys came to that.
Yeah, no worries. I stopped getting talking about price a long time ago.
It's touchy, man. I never know how to bring up price when I'm talking to people. So
yeah, no, it's fine. I think, you know, it is it's a real thing, and, you know, people have budgets, and I understand that. You know, I think it's really very simple, and it's people think we have much more nefarious plans, you know, and like gouging customers or some crazy thing. But like, we have a cost of goods sold. You know, we have like a bill of materials that have a specific cost, and we basically try to make some margin on that. and do that in a way that doesn't make people totally off-put from the product, because typically consumer electronics are typically priced 4 times as sort of a rough metric of how much it costs to build.
Right.
And so I'll tell you that we're not even there. So, you know, from a metric standpoint, we are underpricing it, but, you know, again, we're selling direct. So, right. You know, that's basically the only reason that we've been able to price it at where it is. We definitely made some decisions with this product to try and keep things, you know, as high quality as possible. I mean, it's all name brand components. You know, there's ways to bring the price down, and we certainly thought about it, and we want to maybe do that in a future iteration, but it's not going to be for this product. It's going to be for something else that fills a similar need, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense, man. I've worked I've worked in this industry for a while. I know where you're coming from.
And look, I think, we're never, it's sort of a safe assumption that every writer already has some sort of computer, whether it's a tablet or a laptop or a desktop. And so we're not trying to say like, oh, you need to get rid of your laptop, or, this should be your next laptop purchase, right?
Right.
Similarly, I think, a lot of writers do buy iPads for their writing practice, and those aren't cheap either. So
yeah, it's interesting because they'll pay a pretty hefty price tag for the iPad, and then they'll turn off all the features so that they can do the focused writing.
Right. Or how many people are buying, $2,000 laptops just to go on Facebook, which is fine. Everyone should do their own thing. Our pricing is really just based on the cost of the product, and, trying to be reasonable. I think, the most important thing for us is that it's useful enough for people that buy it, and that it actually does its job. And so, if I could figure out a way for it to be 4 times as useful and only twice as expensive, I probably would make that product, but I don't know. I don't even know what I would do. Yeah. So, I think for us, people have written millions of words on these things. And if a writer actually does incorporate it into their practice and are seeing sort of the productivity gains, then it's well worth it for them. So, it's just a balance there. And I hope that, people give it a shot, I guess.
Yeah. So, okay. And if you can't answer this, I understand. Okay. So who's the most famous user you have for the product? Bearing in mind that I haven't started using it yet. We'll start from there.
Yes. We're waiting for you to receive the Freewrite. We've had some pretty famous people. I'll actually, it's a good question.
Man, you should know this. This is marketing 101, man. Yeah,
I don't know. You see, I'm not sure who, I don't know if I should really talk about it. I mean, there are some very A-list people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm not going to push you on it.
I'd say look on Twitter,
On Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, Dana
hashtag.
Dana Schwartz, who is the guy in your MFA Twitter, which is a very funny Twitter account. She bought one and loves it and has tweeted about it quite a bit.
I go to a lot of conferences, and so I get a chance to meet a lot of authors from all over the world, and I'm starting to see this thing show up. It's slowly creeping in, like it's entering the ecosystem. And I think rightly so, because there is this. It's part of it is, I think, the nostalgia of it. There's a nostalgic feel to it, and a lot of us became writers because we connected with that vibe, right? The focused writing aspect of it, I think, is helpful, but I kind of wonder, like, do you hear from people like that? Is that the primary reason people buy it, or is it something else?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I think it's a mix, right? I think there's people that are very aspirational, and they've had that book on their mind, and think this might be the tool for them. But those are obviously, like, most of the time, those aren't going to be like our best customers, because, you still have to have motivation, right? I think, then there are a lot of folks that sort of already have some type of distraction-free elements into their writing process. And I think those are really the people that take to it really well. Whether they, a lot of writers will write longhand first and then edit on their computer, or they'll maybe write on their tablet, or they have already some sort of separation between the drafting and editing process. And it's actually a lot of people, and those people, I think, are finding it very useful, just because, if you wanted to write on a typewriter, a lot of people we talk to just don't do it because they know they're going to have to retype it later.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, for those people, this is like a perfect thing.
Yeah.
They don't have to retype it. It's literally just sitting in
That
Dropbox.
that's what I'm thinking, man. I mean, and what format does it save it in?
It saves as a docx, so which is
Really?
pretty cool. Yeah, so it's already set up for Markdown, and I'm not sure if you use Markdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even dummies like me, I can just put like stars around words, and they'll be italicized, and it'll be saved fully formatted in a docx, so that I can open it in Word, and it's there. And
Okay.
and same thing if you sync it to Google Drive. It's saved fully formatted as well. So it's pretty fast. I mean, once you have this process in, I mean, you can have a fully formatted document, and it's honestly, if you learn how to use it, it's a lot faster than doing.
There's that. I'm telling you, man. There's this line like you're on one side or the other. You're either on the side where you're like Markdown's a cool way to do formatting, and then there's the other side. It's like torches and pitchforks. Barry mentioned that because I interviewed the one of the founders of Ulysses, which is a writing app, and they rely heavily on Markdown, and it just annoys some people, and it's just the way it is. But let me ask you this: would I be able to use like shortcut keys? Like if I wanted to italicize, could I hit Control I or something and shortcut it, or do I have to actually type in the asterisk and that sort of thing?
You have to type in the asterisk because it actually, so on the Freewrite itself, it doesn't show it rendered, if that makes sense. It's just going to show the plain text with the asterisk. And, we've talked about doing some like render, there's like a preview key or something, but it's something that we've talked about and literally not a single person has asked for. So that's usually a good sign of us not wasting our time on it.
Right. That's cool,
people,
man.
Yeah, I think, with I don't actually get into any arguments with people about Markdown because I don't talk about it.
Right.
But my opinion is like Markdown seems so deep and sort of daunting if you start reading all the documentation. But even if you just know how to italicize, bold, and heading, like just the really, really basics,
right,
gets you 95% of the way.
That is all I ever did. I mean, you can go all kinds of directions with it, but all I ever did was the basic formatting stuff, and it worked out pretty well for me. So I don't use it now because I use a completely different app. But if I start playing around with this thing, I'm sure it'll all come back to me. It's pretty standardized, right?
Yeah, it's really simple. I mean, you almost don't even have to think about it. You use a hashtag to make a heading, use a dot or a star on a new line to do a list. I mean, it's sort of like if you imagine how would you have written this? It's pretty much there.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I can get behind that. We'll see how many emails I get because people like to be very vocal about this stuff.
What did they say? They say that it shouldn't exist or something.
I have literally gotten people forward me the same like 3 articles that are floating around online all the time to tell me. One of them is titled "Markdown should not exist, and here's why." Another one, I mean, everyone's galvanized. Everyone wants to be galvanized over it.
Wow. Okay.
Whatever, man. I mean, you don't have to use the very cool smart typewriter if you can't stand Markdown. What I would say though is just use it to get your writing down without any formatting, because the formatting is kind of a distraction on its own as well. So I would say just concentrate on doing the writing, and then you can come back and do formatting after the fact. Like,
absolutely.
Why do you?
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
We actually don't even really tell people that, like, there's no option to have it do Markdown formatting. So it's really just for people that know that it exists, which
Excellent.
is not many people. And so, I bet most of our customers, I don't have any data on this, but I would say that most of them don't use any form Markdown.
Yeah. What about things like scene breaks? Would you just put like the 3 asterisks in there, or would that screw around with the Markdown? Can you do that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, we use a specific, Markdown parser. So if working in most other Markdown situations, it's probably going to work on ours.
Right.
But the Markdown formatting language is getting pretty long.
Yeah.
I haven't honestly kept up with every single one.
but it works, whatever. I mean,
it works. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I'm really impressed that it exports as a docx file, because that makes it, that basically makes it accessible to just about any word processing software out there. Including, by the way, I'm going to plug my company now, because Draft Digital will take that docx file and convert it to an ebook. So you could actually, if you didn't have a bunch of fancy formatting that you needed to do, you could actually just spit that right out into a book. If you wanted to.
And it'll also save. You can export it as a text file, and we also have sort of a secondary option where there's a send button on the keyboard. And if you click the send button, it will send the document that you're currently working on as a text and a PDF to your inbox.
Oh, very cool.
An easy way to kind of just like get the document out.
Yeah.
You don't want to dig through Dropbox, or you're on your phone or something like that, or you want to forward it to somebody.
So it syncs with Dropbox and Google Drive. Does it sync with any other cloud services?
And Evernote.
Evernote. Yeah. I kind of miss Evernote sometimes. I kind of migrated away from Evernote, but that was my go-to everything software for a long time.
Yeah, I love Evernote, but I'm sort of a late adopter on it, and I think part of the reason was that I think it did too much, and I sort of was always a little nervous about it. And then once I realized that I could just use it for note taking and nothing else, then I started using it, which is funny.
Right. Yeah,
that's fine.
So not necessarily an Evernote endorsement, but at least we know you guys work with it. That's cool.
Yeah. Some people love it. So, it's a good way to organize stuff, whereas, Dropbox, it's not really meant for a lot of obviously it'll store all your documents, but it's not meant to like organize thoughts or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So, there are, okay. I'm just sort of all around impressed by the product, because I'm a geek. I mean, I like toys. So every time something new comes out, I want to try it and play with it. I've seen this floating around for quite a while now, though. When did you guys first release?
So the Kickstarter was almost exactly 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it didn't exist much before that. It really only existed for basically since October. So it was like 2 months, lead up into the Kickstarter. We got things going pretty quickly because we wanted to we got a lot of buzz and wanted to, see what we could do with it. So we didn't have a long gestation period. It was pretty much as soon as we put the prototype online and people started getting interested, we tried to get our act together to launch the Kickstarter. And then here we are 3 years later.
Right. So what's kind of on the board coming up, or you may not be able to share this, and that's cool too. But you got some interesting ideas going forward, maybe new development for it?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly sort of working on it. So we actually just announced that we have launched our second generation Freewrite. Mm-hmm. And so we'd actually been kind of quietly selling them as just part of the Freewrite sales for the last couple months. And the big changes are that we've sort of doubled the real life battery life, real-time battery life. So the battery is much larger, and we've also done some improvements on the energy draw of the keyboard. So, the first generation, it works great, but we didn't get the battery life that we were really hoping for. So we put a bigger battery in there. We did some other optimizations, and now it's about 2 times the original. And that's for like real working conditions, which is really great. So we're calling it our second gen product. Everything mechanically is the same. It still works, with Postbox, which is our backend software, which we haven't talked about, but that's sort of like our own cloud service that, so I think of it like an archive of your documents and also manages your device.
Okay.
And so we've done that. we have we're going to have a pretty interesting announcement coming out, I think, in the next week or two. And yeah, we've got a bunch of things on the horizon that we're pretty excited about.
Very cool. Very cool.
Hardware side, I'll say one more thing on the software. We've been working for quite a while on a new firmware update. So we do send out firmware updates over the air, which is pretty cool. And we have a new firmware update coming out that will, just make everything more robust and add some features. And that's sort of been a while coming. It's always a major process to send out a firmware update. We need to make sure everything works and documents are syncing and people are super happy. So, but we're on pace for that. And that'll work for all the free writes. So not just the new ones, it'll work for the old ones as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. I'll be on the lookout. Where can people find you and your stuff? I mean, where can people find out more about the Freewrite?
So Freewrite is at getfreewrite.com. And all the information is there. We obviously sell the new second generation Freewrite. We have some accessories. We just ran a big promo for Cyber Monday and Black Friday. We'll probably be doing some more stuff over the holidays. That went really well. We sell some additional keycaps as well. So we are seeing a lot of international orders these days, which is really cool. But you can get French, German, and Spanish keycaps from our website. And we also have black keycaps. So we have a few different customization options. And then our corporate website is astrohaus.com as well.
Excellent. All right. And of course, everybody can find links to all of that in the show notes. Make sure you pull over and safely browse your phone or however you're listening to the show. Don't do that and drive, we ask. So, all right, Adam, man, I appreciate it. And thanks so much for being on the show and taking the time, man. I'm looking forward to playing with this thing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you'll get a hands-on pretty soon.
All right. Well, you hang out, and everybody else, you are probably hearing the groovy theme music right now. You may dance in place at will. We'll see you on the other side with some news and updates, and otherwise, I'll see you all next time. Hey, welcome to the other side of the interview. Now, we've got some industry news. I'm going to hop right into this stuff because we've got some really cool stories you're going to want to know about. First up, Jeff Bezos reveals Amazon Prime has 100 million Prime members. That is a lot of cheddar, man. 100 million members at a minimum subscription price of $99 a year. That's going to give us around $9.9 billion with a B, billion. That's quite a few people that are locked in and vetted and verified customers of Amazon. Not to mention the money that they go ahead and spend through the program. So that's 9.9 billion. Give or take another 9.9 billion, because these guys are going to be out there spending all kinds of money. Now, if you don't know anything about Amazon Prime, it's a subscription-based service. I'm a member. It gives you access to quite a bit of Amazon content for free. Some of that is books. So as an Amazon Prime member, you actually get access to a library of books. Some of your indie author books are probably in that service. It's similar to Kindle Unlimited with a few more limitations for the reader. But you can also get into things like Amazon's video service and a few other subscription services that are tied into Prime. Plus, you get discounts on shipping for physical products. So it's kind of a good investment, a $99 a year investment. I love the service personally. So finding out that there's 100 million of us out there is huge. Now, I don't know what to do with this information now that I have it, but just good on you, Jeff. You did good. The company has done well, of course, and this is coming out of Amazon's annual shareholder report. So there was a lot of talk about how they're looking to improve. They're looking to make the customer experience better. I, for one, am glad to hear that. So that's Amazon. Won't be the last time we hear about Amazon today, believe me. Now, Ally is betting on blockchain. If you don't know what blockchain is, you're not alone. If you've heard anything about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, that means you probably have questions about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But in the general idea behind blockchain, you've probably heard of blockchain by this point. and it's a little difficult to explain. So let me take a crack at it, and if I get it wrong, correct me in the comments below. I'm happy to be corrected. Essentially, blockchain is a way for you to make digital products a lot more like physical products in that in their transferability. So if I buy a physical book from somebody, I can read that book and then I can resell that book, but I can't keep a copy of that book and resell it, not without a lot of additional work on my part. The whole cryptocurrency blockchain idea is that we can assign specific numbers to a product, a digital product. It can't be replicated, it can't be removed. So if anyone buys your digital book, and they could resell it at that point if they chose, but they can't keep a copy of it. So there's some implications here for piracy, but it also helps us to own our product. We get a lot more ownership over our digital property and our intellectual property. Ally is betting on this as a way to circumvent or maybe overcome Amazon and others in the chain of, we'll just say chain of custody of money coming in for your intellectual property. So Ally, like a lot of people, does not think that Amazon is necessarily worthy of holding the reins and controlling and being gatekeepers of the indie publishing industry. And I agree. I think that that's a truth. Now, I may have muddled all this up. Cryptocurrency and blockchain and all this stuff is pretty new to me, and I'm diving in to learn more. So, as I learn more, you'll learn more. But let's educate each other. Go ahead and pop into the comments below. Let me know what you think of this story. There's a link to this story and to the last story I mentioned in the show notes of this episode. Check it out. Let me know in the comments what you think of all this. And if you can help me figure out what cryptocurrency and blockchain and all that stuff means, good on you. I'm getting into the groove of it. I'm figuring some stuff out. It hasn't captured my interest until now, so I haven't really paid that much attention to it. But I'm getting into it. So I'd love to chat about that. Pop in the comments and let me know what you think. Now, our third and final story: Amazon wins its first arbitration. Now, back in September of 2017, Amazon filed against at least 5 authors and businesses that I'm aware of in order to basically crack down on scams that are happening through the KDP platform. So if you haven't heard about it, where you been, where you sleeping, is it under a rock? The idea here is that there are scammers out there using KDP to do everything, basically just to take your money, to take a reader's money and give very little in return. Even worse, even if they're not taking the reader's money, they're taking money out of the pockets of other authors. Maybe that's not worse. That's on par. But the idea is there are scammers out there, including scammers like, and let me look his name up real quick. I had it right in front of me. His name is Jake Drya. Jake Drya is a UK business owner. He's got several book-based businesses. Amazon won their arbitration against Jake. Now, the idea here was that Jake owned some companies that were doing things like creating bots that would actually scan through a book from beginning to end in order to take advantage of KDP's page reads and pay out on that. There were other little things they were doing that were kind of interesting. Let's see, duplicate books. That's interesting. The same book, different title, different cover, and they're able to just replicate that over and over again. So these things are all in violation of Amazon's terms of service for KDP. Amazon has, as part of its policies, arbitration as a way of settling disputes. They have to go to arbitration first. So now that they've won this arbitration against Jake, now they go to court and they say, we need you to enter this into the record so that we can go ahead and collect on the money that Jake owes us. And that's probably going to be a big chunk of money. I don't have an exact figure in front of me. I'm sorry about that. But I like to see the result of this. This is a cool thing. The reason this is cool for us as authors, those of us who do use the KDP program, KDP Select, and have our books in the Kindle Unlimited library, I have a few in there. The good news for us is that as they're cracking down on these scams, it means more money available to us in that pool. Fewer people taking it and scamming their way to it. More people earning it legitimately. Now, I want to see more crackdowns like this. I think this is a good sign. I want to see Amazon really go after this and go after the scammers. I'm not alone in this. But, remains to be seen. Amazon is Amazon. Amazon's going to do what Amazon does. So let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Amazon is, Amazon's almost always going to be in our news segment. Let's just face that. But Amazon, they're huge and they're cumbersome, and they've got a lot of power, but they also they don't always see what's going on in the lower depths of their organization. So we're kind of at the bottom of that structure, we authors. So it is good to see them dip down and try to help us out a little. It may not be specifically for us. It's probably more in line with helping the reader so they can get scammy and junk content off of the service, but it has a side benefit of helping we, the author. So that's it for the news segments this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wordslinger podcast. Now we've got, among other things, let's. I think there was a giveaway we mentioned. $50 off of a free write for listeners for a limited time. Now, what I would do if I were you is go ahead and go to Freewrite's website, and that is freewrite.com, and reach out to them, contact them, and say, I heard you on the Wordslinger podcast. I listened to Adam Leeb on the Wordslinger podcast with Kevin Tomlinson, and he mentioned a $50 off reward, so go claim that. And that's what we'll do. And if that doesn't work, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Now, this episode of the Wordslinger podcast, of course, is sponsored in part by Draft to Digital. Now, Draft to Digital is going to let you convert, publish, and distribute your work worldwide with support the whole way. And you can jump into that at drafttodigital.com/wordslinger to give me a little kickback. Nothing's taken out of your pocket. You sign up, it's a free account. You get all these free tools. There's a lot of cool stuff that you get for absolutely free. And it costs you, on the whole, about 15% of your royalty every time you sell a book through us. So we only make money when you make money. That's the best business plan there is. So check out drafttodigital.com. You can see the URL on the screen. drafttodigital.com/wordslinger will throw a little kickback my way. So thank you for that. You can also support this show by subscribing and hitting the little notification icon. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below. It's a little red button. It's kind of down here. And if you click on that, that'll set you up so that you know when new episodes of the Wordslinger podcast are coming around. Hit the notification icon. It's a little bell icon up above. That will let you know. It'll send you alerts via email, text message, whatever you've set up through YouTube. It'll let you know. If you've got the YouTube app, it'll pop up and say, hey, there's a new podcast from Kevin Thompson, the Wordslinger podcast. You're going to want to do that. That's how you stay in tune. That's how you stay in touch. I've had some people tell me they really enjoyed the news segment, so thank you for that. And that's it. That's going to be it. Make sure you're subscribing to the show and sharing it with friends. And that's all she wrote. So take care of yourselves out there. I really appreciate you being a listener. Really appreciate if you're subscribing. Make sure you pick up some of my books. This will help me out quite a bit, actually. If you go to kevintomlinson.com/books, you'll find everything I've published to date. And I think you'll find something. There's bound to be something there you're going to enjoy. So take care of yourself. God bless. I'll see you all next time.